Everything about the office screamed money and Manhattan attitude, marble floors, museum-level artwork, and the kind of silence that feels expensive. Standing there in his slightly wrinkled thrift store suit, Reed Maddox felt like a busted penny in a millionaire's pocket. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tunning in form? We love seeing how far our stories travel. We love you to subscribe our channel for more interesting single dad stories. 18 job interviews in 37 days. 18 rejections. His bank account was on life support, rent was 2 weeks overdue, and his landlord, Mr. You got 5 days, was counting down like it was rocket launch night. But Reed wasn't here for pride. Pride doesn't pay for lunch boxes and field trip permission slips. He was here because the woman behind that door, Felicity Hale, tech mogul, paralyzed genius, and certified nightmare boss, had fired over 100 assistants in 2 years. People said she was impossible, ice queen in a wheelchair, rich, ruthless, and emotionally bulletproof. But to Reed, she was a paycheck with health insurance. "Mr. Maddox," came a tight voice. He looked up at a silver-haired woman with the kind of posture that could stop tank traffic. She raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Follow me, and for your sake, don't try too hard. She hates that." Reed swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." He was led into a sunlit office that looked like a Wall Street version of Iron Man's lab. Smart screens, adaptive tech, sleek automation, all wrapped around an elegant mahogany desk where Felicity sat, perfectly still, perfectly composed, and perfectly intimidating. Her wheelchair looked more modern than most cars. She didn't extend a hand, didn't smile, didn't blink either. "Sit!" Not a suggestion, an order. Reed sat, heartbeat tap dancing in his ears. Felicity studied him like she was calculating his entire personality in Excel. "You know," she said, voice cold but velvet smooth, "people usually start by listing skills, degrees, and inflated promises. I don't care about any of that." She leaned slightly forward. "Tell me why you won't quit after 3 days like everyone else." Reed had prepared answers, professional ones. But something about her eyes, fierce, exhausted, maybe even lonely, made him speak the truth instead. "I can't promise I'll be better than the others," he said slowly. "But I won't quit. I don't have that luxury." He swallowed hard. "If I don't land a stable job now, I could lose my home. My daughter loses stability, and I'm done losing things." Silence. Then something utterly shocking happened. Felicity smirked. Actually smirked. "You're desperate," she said, voice unreadable. "Yes," Reed replied, "but I show up. Desperate people show up." A beat of silence. Then she actually laughed, not a bubbly laugh, not even a kind laugh, but a real one. "Everyone tries to impress me," she said. "Credentials, etiquette, fake charm." Her eyes held something he couldn't name. "You're the first who just showed up messy and honest." "I don't have time to be anything else," he said quietly. Another pause, then she leaned back. 2-week trial, you show up at 7:15, do exactly what I say, no excuses, no disappearing. Her voice dropped lower. "And understand, this job is not heartwarming. It's uncomfortable." Reed nodded. "I don't scare easy." Felicity looked at him for a long time, then softly, almost reluctantly. "Salary is $98,000, health coverage for dependents. We start tomorrow." He blinked. Then smiled, a tired, grateful, totally relieved smile. "I'll be here." "I know," she said. "That's what scares me." But on his very first morning, before he even made coffee, Reed Maddox would learn that Felicity Hale didn't just need an assistant. She needed someone stubborn enough to see the person behind the armor. New York winter mornings didn't play nice. Wind slapped him across the face like it had a personal issue, and Reed hustled up the brownstone steps clutching coffee, documents, and a car key that definitely didn't belong to him yesterday. He was 20 minutes early, and still felt late. He knocked. The door swung open to reveal Judith, the silver-haired assistant with Navy-level posture and zero patience for nonsense. "You're early," she said, eyeing him like that was somehow suspicious. "I figured better than late," Reed said. The correct reply was, "Yes, ma'am." Right, military vibes confirmed. She led him through a sleek, quiet hallway that smelled like lavender and ridiculously expensive candle. The brownstone wasn't just fancy, it was smart. Lights flicked on before they reached them. Doors slid open with smooth, silent automation. "Miss Hale is finishing therapy," Judith said as they entered a bright office. "You'll shadow me until she calls for you. No personal questions, no unnecessary chatter. No touching anything unless you're told to, and for the love of sanity, never say the word inspirational." "Got it," Reed nodded. "Don't be annoying and never treat her like an inspirational tick-tock." Judith's lips twitched the briefest ghost of amusement. "You might survive day one." She walked him through calendars, scheduling systems, adaptive tech interfaces, and Felicity's terrifying organizational structure. There were red days, gray days, and blackout days. Red days equals high pain, limited mobility, no annoyance tolerated. Gray days equals standard work days, still no annoyance tolerated. Blackout days equals do your job, stay invisible, pray silently. "She will not warn you which day it is," Judith added. "She expects you to pay attention." At exactly 7:45, the office door opened, and Felicity Hale rolled in, wearing a tailored charcoal jacket, hair sleek, expression unreadable. "Coffee," she said. Reed jumped into action like he'd been training for this moment his entire life. "Black, blue mug, third cabinet," he blurted. Her eyebrow lifted, mildly impressed. She said nothing, just waited. He returned in seconds with the mug. She accepted it. No thanks. But she didn't send it back either. Small victory. The morning went full sprint after that. Reed handled emails, calendar approvals, and a request for updated documents that he low-key prayed he wouldn't mess up. At 9:15, she looked at him. "Email draft," she said. "Quarterly update, 3 sentences, no fluff." He drafted quickly. Tight, clean, efficient. He handed it to her. She read it. Silence. "Then who taught you to write like a CEO?" Desperation," he said before he could stop himself. A smirk, barely there, but real. Then came the moment everything shifted. He heard it before he saw it. The sharp inhale. The tiniest wince. She reached for something but couldn't quite grip it. Her hand trembled. Pain day, maybe worse, he understood immediately. "Medications in your drawer, left side." She stiffened. "I didn't ask you." "I know," he said softly, "but I've seen that look before." She looked at him, really looked. Not cold this time, not guarded, just human. Judith appeared in the doorway, watching silently. But Felicity didn't snap at him. She just nodded, one tiny nod. He retrieved the medication, placed it on the desk without a word. No pity, no hovering, just help. That moment was the moment he stopped being assistant number 108 and became something else entirely. But by Thursday morning, Reed would learn what a true red day looked like and why every assistant before him had quit before surviving one. If gray days were chilly, polite business days, and blackout days were quiet, heads-down work, then red days were emotional hurricane season with no evacuation route. Reed figured that out by 8:07 a.m. on Thursday. Felicity came in late, not late for normal people, late for her. 7:52 a.m. her jaw was clenched, her breathing tight, her hands slightly trembling. She didn't say hello, didn't ask for coffee, didn't look at him. She just said 2 words, "Schedule now." He followed her into her office, tablet in hand. Judith shot him a warning look. "Today you don't fix things, you don't comfort, you just survive." Felicity rattled off changes at rapid speed. "Cancel Faraday meeting, reschedule physical therapy, move research call, decline London presentation, you'll speak in my place." Me? Reed blinked. She looked up, irritation sharp. Did I stutter? No, ma'am, he said quickly. It's just... Then why are you still standing there? Ruthless, sharp, unfiltered. This was her storm mode. He nodded, typing rapidly, tracking every adjustment. She didn't micromanage. She fired instructions like bullets. Her pain was obvious, but she hid it behind control, total control. And then she dropped a folder, not dramatically, not emotionally. Her hand simply slipped. Paper spilled everywhere. She froze, not reaching for them, not speaking, just frozen. Reed knew this wasn't about papers. She hated needing help. Miss Hale, he said softly. I've got it. No, it's okay. I said no. Her voice cracked, not with anger this time, but with something almost like shame. He slowly crouched down, picked the papers up one by one, organizing them quietly. No pity. No pep talk, just help. When he finished, he placed them gently on her desk. Her voice was quiet, tight. Assistants hover, they fuss. They offer sympathy like I'm a project or a charity case. Her eyes met his, hard but glassy. Do not treat me like I'm broken. He didn't hesitate. Not broken, he said, just human like the rest of us. Silence, then something he never expected, she whispered. Thank you, not once, but twice. As if the first one didn't count. She took her medication without comment. He pretended not to notice her shaking hands. When she finally spoke again, her voice was calmer. Most assistants quit on the first red day. Reed nodded. I'm not most assistants. Her gaze locked onto his, measured, searching. Then coffee, she said softly, not a command this time, a request. He nodded, and made it exactly how she liked it, even warmed the mug. Her left eye flickered, somewhere between surprise and appreciation. By mid-afternoon, the storm had passed. Not gone, just quiet. He didn't fix it, he didn't cure it, he just stayed. And that, for her, was everything. But staying would become a whole different challenge when Reed discovered what blackout days really meant, and why Felicity never talked about them. If red days were storms, then blackout days were something colder. Quieter, not angry, not fiery, just empty. Reed knew it the moment he walked in. No lights on, no lavender candle. No classical music humming softly from the smart speakers like usual, just silence, thick, heavy silence. Judith stood near the staircase, face softer than usual. She didn't sleep, Judith murmured. Pain is up. Mood is, she searched for a word, settled on distant. Reed nodded slowly. Meds, already taken, he hesitated. Want me to handle emails from here? Judith surprised him with a small nod. If she lets you. He walked toward the office quietly. Felicity wasn't at her desk. She was by the window, no wheelchair. Sitting on a cushioned bench, legs covered by a blanket, staring outside like the city might answer a question she hadn't asked aloud. She didn't turn when he entered, didn't acknowledge him, didn't speak. Morning, Reed said softly, giving her space. No answer, not rude, just gone. He set her coffee on the side table, black, warm, blue mug, then quietly pulled out his tablet and began working silently in the background. No schedule reminders, no questions, just presence. 35 minutes passed, he didn't speak. Neither did she. At 8:54 a.m., Felicity finally said, very softly, I hate these days. Reed looked up gently. She wasn't crying, she wasn't angry, she was just tired. You want silence, he said. She nodded. But not loneliness. He understood completely, so he stayed, working quietly at the other end of the office. No noise, no pity. Just two people existing in the same space, both a little bruised, both healing in silence. After another while, she finally spoke again. They think I'm cold, she murmured. They see this life, the company, the money, and think I'm unbothered. But some days I feel like I live behind glass. He listened, quietly. She continued, still staring out the window. People see the chair before they see me. Or they see the CEO before they see the woman. I'm either a headline or a charity case, never just human. He nodded. I get that. She tilted her head slightly, studying him now. Do you? Maybe not exactly like you, Reed said gently. But after Cassidy died, people stopped talking to me like I was a person. I became either a tragic story or a strong single dad. She held his gaze. Understanding passed between them unspoken but real. That afternoon, she didn't bark orders. She didn't criticize. She didn't expect miracles. She just let him be there. Present, helping, existing. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to fight alone. Later that evening, when Reed was packing his bag to leave, Felicity called softly, "Reed." He paused. She looked at him, not like a boss, like a person. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not trying to fix it." He smiled. "Any time," she nodded. Then after a breath, soft, fragile, genuine, "You may go home." But for the first time, she almost sounded disappointed that he did. But healing was never going to be quiet. And when the first real breakthrough came, it wouldn't be in her therapy room, it would be in her heart. Week 3 felt different, not easier, just less like walking through emotional landmines and more like learning a complicated melody. Reed was starting to understand her rhythm, not just the business schedule, but the human one. She worked best between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock a.m., hyper-focused, laser-precise, coffee-fueled brilliance. After 10:30, the strain from physical therapy crept in. By noon, she didn't snap when she was in pain. She went quiet. Cold type of quiet. Closed door, no eye contact, let me handle my own battles, quiet. He learned that asking, "Are you okay?" was the wrong move. But asking, "Want me to reschedule your 1 p.m.?" that earned a nod, and sometimes that nod was her version of thank you. She was all edges and iron will, but Reed had figured out one secret. Felicity Hale didn't want comfort. She wanted competence, and that he could give. One morning, she called him in while typing furiously on her adaptive keyboard. "Read this," she said, flicking her eyes toward her screen. He stood beside her desk, leaned slightly, reading aloud. "More Technologies projects 35% growth with its new adaptive software line." She cut him off with a sharp look. "Stop reading like NPR. Read it like you believe it." He blinked, then smirked. "Okay, so less National Public Radio, more Super Bowl commercial." "Exactly," she said flatly. "Sell it, don't soothe it." He tried again. This time he read with conviction like he was pitching to a room full of billionaires. She watched him, very still, then nodded once. "There it is," she murmured, confidence. No pity, no hesitation. "You know," she said, leaning back slightly, "you're better at this than you think." He shrugged. "Desperation builds skill." She gave him a dry look. "Well, stop being desperate. I need you sharp, not scrambling." He grinned. "All right, boss." The second he said it, he realized his mistake. She didn't like being called boss. She preferred being seen as equal. No, not equal, just human. But instead of snapping, she surprised him. "Don't call me boss," she said calmly. Reed nodded. "Okay, Miss Hale, then." "No," she said, softer now, "just Felicity." Something in the room shifted, not big, not dramatic, just real. That afternoon, she had a virtual board presentation, high stakes, high pressure, and the board members were notorious sharks disguised in Armani suits. Her software demo was failing, glitching, frozen. She looked at him, panic behind her eyes, though she'd never admit it. "Fix it," she whispered. Reed moved fast, fingers flying across the keyboard. He bypassed the glitch, network-routed her system into a backup access panel, and reinstated the media server connection. Her eyes widened. "That should have taken at least 10 minutes, she murmured. "It took 2, he said. "Well," she smirked, "I hired the right disaster." He laughed. She didn't, but her eyes were smiling. When the board meeting began, Reed stood quietly off-screen, prepping data slides like a magician's assistant. He watched her transform. No wheelchair, no hesitation, just power, precision, fire. She didn't just impress them, she commanded them. One of the board members, a sharp-tongued investor named Crandall, tried to cut her off. "I just worry that, given your condition," Felicity didn't blink. "My condition is called competitive advantage," she said smoothly. "I don't design adaptive technology because I read about it. I design it because I live it." The meeting went silent, respectful. She wrapped it in 30 minutes flat. When she ended the call, she didn't celebrate, she didn't brag, she just silently exhaled, hands pressed to her temples. "Headache?" Reed asked gently. "Yes," she said quietly, "but mild." He nodded. "Want the room dark?" She looked at him for half a second, not cold, not hard, just grateful. "That would be nice." He dimmed the lights, closed the blinds halfway. She relaxed, and for 5 entire minutes they sat in calm silence. And it wasn't awkward at all. But peace never lasted long around Felicity Hale, and the next day, Chaos walked into the brownstone wearing sneakers and holding a stuffed bunny. Friday morning started like any other. Reed arrived early, coffee in hand, mentally prepping for another day of being half assistant, half storm tracker. But Chaos apparently had other plans. Chaos, in this case, wore sparkly pink sneakers, a Minnie Mouse backpack, and held a well-loved stuffed bunny named Sir Whiskerton. "Daddy, this house looks like the place in Home Alone where the kid sleds down the stairs," Sadie whispered, eyes wide. "Please, please, don't try that," Reed muttered. Childcare had crashed that morning, literally. Their sitter slipped on ice, sprained an ankle, and Sadie's school had early dismissal. He had no choice. He brought his 6-year-old to Manhattan's most emotionally complicated workplace, to face his intimidating, unpredictable, high-powered boss. The same boss who once fired someone for chewing gum too loudly. Judith met them at the door. She looked at Sadie, then at Reed. "Does she bite?" "Only if hungry," Reed joked. Judith nodded. "She'll fit in just fine." Reed nearly choked. He led Sadie to the office. She stared out of windows, touched fancy books gently, gasped at a robotic sliding door, and whispered, "Daddy, is your boss Batman?" "Trust me," he whispered back. "Batman is less scary." Then the door opened, and there she was, Felicity. Sharp suit, hair perfect, expression unreadable. Sadie stared, Felicity stared back. Reed died internally. I apologize," he stammered. "Childcare fell through and—" "Hello, Sadie," Felicity said calmly. "Wait, what?" "You know my name?" Sadie gasped. Felicity gave a small nod. "Your father talks about you often." Her tone shifted, softer. "He says you're very good at asking smart questions." Sadie blinked, thought about that. "Wanna see my bunny?" Reed was certain time froze. Felicity looked at the bunny, paused, then, slowly, "I would like that." Sir Whiskerton was officially introduced, and Reed watched the most powerful woman he'd ever known examine a stuffed rabbit with seriousness usually reserved for FDA board hearings. After a moment, she nodded approvingly. "Solid stitching, reliable face, clearly well-loved," Sadie beamed. "He's been through stuff." "So have we all," Felicity said softly. Reed froze. That wasn't corporate Felicity. That was human Felicity. Hours passed, but not the chaotic disaster Reed had imagined. Things got oddly warm, comfortable, sweet, even. Sadie colored at the conference table while Reed filtered emails and Felicity worked mid-presentation. At one point, Felicity explained coding logic to Sadie using jelly beans and paper shapes. Reed watched from across the room, shocked, moved, and maybe just a little bit in awe. Felicity didn't talk down to Sadie. She spoke to her like a tiny professional, like someone fully capable of understanding big thoughts. "Computers don't think," Felicity said gently. "They obey, so you need to be clear, precise. Brave with your ideas." Sadie looked at her like she'd just handed her the moon. "That's like people," Sadie said thoughtfully. "If you tell them what you really think, they understand better." Felicity blinked, visibly startled. Reed wasn't sure if it was because Sadie was wise, or because she'd accidentally summarized Felicity's entire emotional journey. At 3 p.m., Judith appeared. "Your transportation is here, Miss Hale." Felicity nodded. Then did something nobody expected. She turned to Sadie. "Would you like to come learn coding again sometime?" Sadie gasped, full Disney princess excitement. "For real life real. For real life real," Felicity replied. And that's when Sadie hugged her. No hesitation, no fear, just pure child honesty. Felicity's expression froze for half a second, then softened in a way Reed had never seen. She hugged back, carefully, but genuinely. In the car, driving home, Sadie asked, "Daddy?" "Yeah, bug." Miss Felicity smiles with her eyes now. Reed gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I noticed." But sometimes remarkable moments aren't planned, and the biggest shift in their lives began with a question Felicity never thought she'd ask. "Can I meet her again?" Monday morning arrived with soft snow, bitter coffee, and an oddly nervous CEO. Felicity Hale, who once negotiated a $60 million contract while in active physical pain, was currently pacing in her office because she was waiting for a 6-year-old. "Well, not waiting," she corrected herself quietly, "just preparing." But Judith, who'd seen every version of Felicity from ruthless executive to silent storm cloud, just smirked softly. "You're waiting," Judith said. "No," Felicity argued. "I want to discuss something with Reed." Judith crossed her arms. "The discussion is about Sadie." Felicity glared. Judith remained unbothered, which is exactly when Reed walked in. He paused, instantly sensing something different. Not hostile, not shut down, just unsettled in a vulnerable way. "You okay?" he asked gently. Felicity straightened her blazer even though it didn't need straightening. "I have a meeting request." He blinked. "You want a meeting with me?" "Yes," she took a breath. "And Sadie," Reed blinked once, twice, "like together at the office." "No," Felicity hesitated, then said awkwardly, "at a park." "A park." Felicity Hale. A.T. A park. Even Judith looked like she needed to sit down. So on Wednesday afternoon, the three of them, Reed, Felicity, and Sadie, met at Riverside Park, bundled up and sipping hot chocolate from a corner cafe cart. No suits, no tablets, no Miss Hale or Mr. Maddox. Just people, just a little family that didn't quite know it was becoming one. Sadie was busy building lopsided snow towers, which she claimed were high-security bunny castles. Sir Whiskerton supervised. Felicity watched, quietly fascinated. "You know," she said to Reed, "I've pitched to investors who were less determined than she is." "Yeah," Reed grinned, "she's persistent." "I see where she gets it." He froze. She meant it. And she looked at him, not with boss eyes, but with something softer. Something kind, safe, warm. When they started walking, well, Reed and Sadie walked. Felicity rolled beside them on the paved path until Sadie stopped. "Miss Felicity," she said, serious as a tiny professor. "Do you wish you could walk here too?" Reed's heart nearly stopped. He opened his mouth to gently redirect, but Felicity held up a hand and knelt to Sadie's level well, as close as she could in her chair. "Sometimes," Felicity said softly, "but sometimes I think maybe there are different ways to move through the world." Sadie considered this deeply, then nodded like she had just heard the secret to the universe. "That makes sense. Daddy says walking doesn't only happen with legs." She pointed at Felicity's heart. "Sometimes it happens here." Silence, real, soul-deep silence. And Felicity blinked slowly, stunned, moved, seen. Later, when Sadie ran ahead to chase a squirrel in a strictly friendly inquiry, "Daddy, I promise," Felicity exhaled, quietly, then turned to Reed. "Your daughter," she said softly, "is the only person who looks at me and doesn't see before and after. She just sees me like I am." Reed nodded. "She doesn't measure people by what they've lost." just by what they give. Felicity didn't speak for a long time, then almost like a confession, "I haven't felt this safe in a long time." Reed met her eyes. "You deserve safe." And for just a heartbeat, she believed him. But while love finds its way quietly, healing crashes in loud. And the next breakthrough wouldn't happen in a meeting room, it would happen in physical therapy, with Reed holding her hand when everything changed. Physical therapy days used to feel like battlefields, cold rooms, bright lights, machines humming like they were judging her progress. But lately, something was different. Hope had started sneaking in. No invitation. Just showed up anyway. Today, Felicity had requested something unusual. "Can he stay?" she asked her therapist, nodding toward Reed. Her therapist raised an eyebrow. "Assistants usually wait in the lobby." Felicity's tone was firm but calm. "He's not just an assistant." That sentence did something to Reed's heart, something irreversible. The therapist nodded. "Then let's see what kind of progress we've got today." The session began. Electrical stimulation pads along her calves, thighs, ankles. Screens lit up with signals mapping nerve responses, muscles twitching like they were remembering something. Pain, frustration, hope. She hated this machine because it reminded her that healing required patience. And patience wasn't her thing. She gripped the handles of the parallel bars. "Ready?" the therapist asked. "No," she said honestly. "But go ahead anyway." Reed stood just behind her, close enough for support, but not close enough to interfere. He didn't cheer, he didn't coach, he just stayed. The way he always did, which made all the difference. The machine beeped, nerves fired, muscles trembled. Felicity squeezed the bars, then she moved, her right leg not much, a twitch, a shift, but not involuntary, intentional. The therapist's voice rose. "That wasn't stimulation. That was you." Felicity froze. Hope was loud in her chest. She tried again. Reed held his breath, hands hovering in case she slipped. And then her knee bent, just an inch, but it was real. She gasped. A sound halfway between a laugh and a cry. Reed stepped closer, voice quiet but full. "You did that, Felicity, you." She looked at him, tears, but no sadness, just pride, just belief, just finally hope. That night she didn't sleep. Not because of pain, but because her mind wouldn't stop repeating one thought: "I moved." I moved because I fought for it, not because a machine told me to. She thought about the accident, the silence afterward. How people said things like "you're so strong" when they really meant "I could never survive that." She thought about how everyone around her treated the chair like a cage. But Reed, he treated it like furniture, insignificant compared to her. He never made her feel like broken glass, more like strong steel. Bent but fixable. The next morning at work, she didn't mention the session, didn't announce it, didn't brag, but Reed noticed something different, the way she wheeled herself. Not with effort, but with intent, like she wasn't just existing, she was moving towards something. At noon, she paused by his desk, not commanding, not asking, just sharing. "My leg moved yesterday," she said softly. Reed looked up smiling, but not shocked. "I know," he said. She frowned. "You know," he nodded gently. "I saw hope in your face for the first time, and I knew something had changed." She didn't say anything, but her eyes said everything. But movement wasn't the only thing waking up. Something much more dangerous, much more life-changing was beginning to move too. Something called feelings. Felicity Hale did not like interruptions. She didn't like surprises or emotional detours, or things that couldn't be scheduled neatly into a Google Calendar, which was exactly why she looked annoyed and maybe just a little panicked when she caught herself smiling at Reed's laugh. Not just amused, smiling with her whole face, not the tight, polite one, the real one. And that terrified her more than paralysis ever had. It started small. He said something sarcastic on Tuesday about her firing him twice in his head already, and she, without thinking, smirked back and said, "At least 3 times." Judith, passing by, nearly dropped to her clipboard, but the real crisis came Friday, because Friday was the day Felicity Hale laughed in public, at work. It happened during a meeting with her executive team. Reed stood beside her, quietly handing her reports as she presented. She was explaining a new accessibility product when one of the designers said, "So basically, we're building Iron Man legs." Silence. Then Felicity replied dryly, "Great as long as I get flight mode." And she laughed, not a corporate chuckle. A real, unguarded, surprised laugh. Her team froze, like she'd just spoken ancient Greek. Someone whispered, Did she just?" Reed covered for her smoothly, no hesitation. "Yes," Reed said casually. "Miss Hale does have a sense of humor. Use at your own risk." The room laughed, and Felicity looked at him, not angry. Just exposed, and in a strange way relieved. Later that afternoon, she called him into her office. He expected a lecture, but instead she looked nervous. "I'm losing my edge," she said uncertainly. "I can't afford that." He shook his head. "You didn't lose edge, you gained something else." She frowned. "What?" "Humanity." She looked offended, confused, then thoughtful. "Is that good?" Reed smiled. "It's terrifying, but yeah. It's good." That evening, as he was leaving, she stopped him. "Reed." He paused. She didn't look like his boss. She looked like someone searching for something she couldn't name. "Why?" she asked slowly. "Does it feel easier when you're here even when nothing is easier?" He didn't rush his answer. "Because maybe healing isn't just body and business," he said gently. "Maybe it's people." She looked at him like that sentence cracked open a window she never noticed before, softly, quietly, dangerously close to hope. "Are you saying you're good for my health?" Reed grinned. "Mentally, definitely, physically." "Questionable?" She surprised him with a smile that wasn't careful. "Stay a minute," she said, so he did. He didn't say anything. He just sat there quietly while she finished paperwork. She didn't talk, she just let him stay. And sometimes staying was louder than words. When he finally stood to leave, Felicity spoke without looking up. "Monday," she said. "Yes." She hesitated, then softly. "No meetings after 3 p.m., okay?" She looked up, meeting his eyes. "Sadie can come by if she'd like." Reed paused, smiling slowly. "She'd really like that." Felicity didn't say anything, but her eyes smiled. But sometimes healing doesn't ask permission. It just happens. Like when a CEO who never celebrated birthdays suddenly planned one for a 6-year-old girl and didn't even realize why it mattered so much. Felicity Hale never celebrated birthdays. Not hers, not anyone's. Birthdays reminded her of time, of before and after, of who she used to be and how impossible it felt to ever feel that whole again. So when she arranged cupcakes, balloons, and even a giant plush owl in her office, she didn't fully understand why. Not until Sadie walked in. Pink sneakers, big smile, stuffed rabbit in hand. She stopped in the doorway, eyes wide as galaxies. "Daddy," she whispered, "this is for me?" Felicity stood beside her desk, suddenly nervous, unsure, almost shy. "Yes," she said carefully. "I thought maybe we could celebrate 6.5, since 6 got lost in the chaos." Sadie didn't respond with words. Instead, she ran straight into Felicity's arms. And this time, Felicity didn't freeze. She didn't panic. She didn't think about being fragile. She just held on. Like she had wanted to hold someone for years. Reed watched, not as an assistant, not as an employer, but as something much deeper. Felicity eventually looked up at him. He saw something new in her eyes, not just strength. Not just fire, but softness, home. "I used to think healing meant walking again," she said quietly. Reed stepped closer. "And now?" She looked down at Sadie, still holding onto her like she belonged there. "Now I think healing means not having to walk alone." Reed felt something crack open in his chest, the last piece of grief that had clung to him. He sat beside her. No desks, no roles, no armor, just hearts, battered but beating. Later, after cupcakes, after laughter, after Sadie declared the stuffed owl's name was Professor Hootsworth III, they sat by the window. Felicity, Reed, and Sadie. Three lives that collapsed only to build something stronger, something whole. Sadie leaned sleepily against Felicity's arm. "Miss Felicity?" "Yes, little one. Are you still scared sometimes?" Felicity surprised herself. "Yes," she said softly. "But I'm not scared alone anymore." Sadie smiled, the wise kind only children have. "My daddy says hearts don't break forever." Reed blinked surprised. Did I say that?" "Uh-huh," Sadie nodded. "You said hearts grow back bigger, so they have more room for people who stay." Silence. Beautiful silence. Felicity looked at Reed, no fear, just truth. "You stayed," she whispered. He took her hand. "You let me?" No contracts were signed that day, no promises made, but something was understood. Healing isn't walking. It's trusting someone will walk beside you, even if you don't have legs. Weeks later, when Reed hung a photo on their new home office wall, one of the three of them laughing, messy, cupcake smeared, alive, he added a small frame beneath it. "Hearts don't heal when they're alone. They heal when someone stays." Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is not to fight alone, it's to let someone stay.